Welcome to the world united. Welcome to the world united.
Pranam everyone and welcome to Meet the Master series. This is a prelude to the World Parliament of Spirituality 3, which is to be held across 6 continents. And in Northern America, it is in November. Today, we are so honored to meet Gina, Mele and Cecily Barneson. This is the first time in this series I get to have a conversation with 2 co-founders who seem so complementary and yet working towards a common vision. So I'm really excited to get into this. Gina has been working with C-suite executives since 2007. She weaves her experience as a neurobiologist and academic researcher with Eastern and Western holistic philosophies to create tools for corporate training. Her unique offering lies in leading her clients to have immediate and direct access to their unconscious mind and best self. And we'll get into this more in detail while moving beyond their limiting mindsets. She's a co-founder of Umami and has a graduate degree in systems neurobiology from the University of California, San Diego. Cecily has dedicated her life in service to community and corporate transformation. For over 3 decades, she has offered her creative approach of combining spiritual and business tools. This incorporates both the invisible and visible worlds for aligned shared outcomes for clients. She provides compassionate accompaniment, listening, and supporting her clients on their journey for discovering their unique passions and life purpose. Through this, clients will discover a spiritually aligned approach to live their truth in all aspects of life. Cecily is a co-founder of Umami and has served in urban communities, global nonprofits, Harvard Business School, Stanford University, and Cisco Systems. I am so thrilled to have both of you here. Thank you so much. So I would like to start from the very beginning. I want to know a little about your childhood. How was your childhood, and were there any incidences there that kind of led you towards this path?
Well, thank you, Mansi. This is Cecily, and I'd be happy to reflect on that. Thank you. I had a very creative childhood. I had the opportunity to be exposed to a lot of creative thinkers, both in the business world and in the arts. And so that led me to be very curious and very creative. And also, I had an inner life as a child. I recognized that I had a connection with nature and felt very comfortable with what we might say something beyond. There was something beyond that I could connect with as a child. And I was allowed to kind of feel that for myself. And that curiosity led me to go with girlfriends in school to their spiritual communities. So I was an early spiritual adventurer and appreciated all forms of sacredness, all forms of people recognizing something divine. I had a girlfriend who was Jewish, and I got to experience some of her home family rituals in the Jewish tradition. And another girlfriend was of Asian Pacific descent. And so I was exposed to the beauty of her culture and foods and all. So I really appreciate that for me as a child, I maintained both this intellectual curiosity and also was able to live out my spiritual curiosity.
Oh, that is so beautiful, Cecily. You almost had like a world united kind of childhood when you were experiencing. How beautiful. Thank you.
Cecily, I love hearing some of those things. I am just hearing for the first time about you. I love that. I too had an interesting invitation into spirituality very young. My mom went from high school to be a nun. immediately. And she was a nun for 13 years and very interested in helping the underserved and migrant populations. And she, around in this, I think it was in the 70s, there was something called Vatican II for the Catholic religion. And she thought that everything would change with the church and she could really be even more aggressive with her spiritual voice and really helping individuals, and that didn't happen. So she chose to stop being a nun and kind of went into the secular world, so to speak. And my father, his father figures were of the Jesuit priests, and he was, for a series of health and personal reasons, he ended up not becoming a priest and ended up leaving that world and going and, again, kind of doing his secular thing. And a number of years after they each left their spiritual paths, they found each other. And fortunately for me, they met and had me and 3 brothers. So I was kind of, again, born into a very spiritual type family. And one of the gifts that my parents also did was we chose to adopt my brother hung from Vietnam during the Vietnam War. That was, they wanted to contribute in some way. So that was how they contributed. And I have to say, I love men. They're so amazing. And I've been so blessed to have these divine male role models. And one of the interesting things being raised in this kind of liberal yet spiritual foundation was, kind of holding space and noticing how difficult it was for this young, he was 5 when he came into our family from a war-torn country. And having him as my brother also was very formative in my experience. And it inspired me to really want to delve into the human condition and understand what was that source, what was that base motivator that drives people to behave in whatever way. So I think this mixture of openness to spirituality, and like Cecily, I love exploring different forms of spirituality. So I've learned, a little bit of Buddhism and a little bit of Kabbalah, which is Jewish mysticism, and a little bit of, Native American celebration. And so merging this kind of background of spirituality with this deep desire to understand what drives a human being, I think those 2 fundamentals were some of the basis for Umami, which we'll talk about more, which is this company that Cecily and I have co-founded.
You've had such a rich childhood experience, and I can really see how your parents came together and your younger brother came and how it has led you into this path. It's really beautiful. I think the next I should invite both of you to experience Hinduism because y'all are so interested in our food and our culture.
Oh, I'd love to. Thank you for that invitation.
So, since you brought your mommy up, I'm really curious to know how we all came together and how this company came into being.
Do you want to start, Cecily?
Sure, I'm happy to. I was interested in having a little bit more of non-traditional business training. I was fortunate to be led to a very creative business mind who was offering a course called Creating from Higher Guidance. And so learning how to draw creativity from inside myself and from spiritual sources and use that in the corporate world. And so by joining in that course, I was able to connect with Gina as a mentor of mine. And she did some individual coaching with me, helped me really dig deep into my professional sense of purpose and mission. And again, with this, in this beautiful setting of drawing upon a deeper wisdom than just the classic MBA mindset, which is a wonderful model. I mean, it's been a very successful model, but really connecting head and heart and beyond the left brain or the right brain, but whole brain. And so Gina was a beautiful leader for me in helping me take some next steps in my own business career. So out of that, we had some collaborations at a tech company I was working at. She came in and helped to bring her special gifts into the department I was serving in. And we developed this just great connection together, this ability to co-create together. And out of that, I feel grateful that she shared her vision with me and that we were able to see how we could journey together to bring another aspect of the corporate world through the gift of both of our unique gifts and be of service to the world through a corporation. So that for us became Umami.
Such a beautiful story, and I can see the connection between both of you. We can experience that. Thank you, Cecily.
Cecily, again, I love hearing your beautiful lens of our joining. I'll share kind of a practical piece and then a kind of bigger level. So from a practical perspective, I began a consulting company in 2000, mainly focusing on one-to-one consulting or working with teams and corporates. And over the years, just acquired this gigantic body of work that was all tied to the human condition. Just so many insights about how you can use mindfulness to really tweak time, for example, how you can tune in a quiet way using the energy or the emotion of love and happiness to really access our unconscious mind and what we call our best self. Just so many different insights. And I realized over the years, the number of people who were able to, that I was able to share this information was pretty limited. And that even though it was very, scary for me to think of going to a bigger platform, it was really that edge that I needed to go to. And as Cecily had said, we've had worked on a number of projects together, and I'll just tie this into one of the big gifts I see of Cecily. She is this amazing, brilliant, ethereal light of spirituality. And it's just amazing to see. One of her big gifts, we will teach executives this, is to tune into that best self or that essence of a company. Like literally companies have their own consciousness, and companies that have thrived over the years. Cecily's gift is kind of always engaging with this best self of corporations, and it's very powerful and very useful, and especially at this time where collectively, globally, we're just like Dr. Yugandhar is really focused on this oneness and this collective consciousness, not only acknowledging this individual consciousness, this best self in each human being, but starting to be open to the understanding that companies have this too. And we can help those who are leading the companies support that best self, that inner wisdom of the company, the essence of the company itself, start building that foundation from a place of love instead of from a place of being driven by something other than love. And so to go back to the kind of practical side of Umami, one of the big aspects was, I had this big acumen of understanding of human condition and wanting to share it. And because I'd done so much work with corporations, had a lot of trainings to also offer. And as Cecily and I were working together and collaborating and building Umami, we also really love-filled, kindness-filled, generous acts of kindness, whether they're an individual or a large organization. And so another aspect of Umami is, we call it Umami Exalts. We want to do whatever marketing is necessary to have that is like, when you open the newspaper, that's what you see. You don't see all the kind of scary negative stuff that's going on that also is happening and is important to address. And sometimes it takes on this planet, and it is already filled with love. We just have to focus on that. So that's another big part of Umami. Okay, thank you. I'm a little long-winded sometimes.
That's okay. We learned a lot. So I want to segue into, because I know y'all are catalysts for transformation in the lives of organizations as well as individuals. But I want to talk about what are the turning points in your life? What were the transformative experiences in your lives?
Cecily, are you cool if I'm going to begin?
Please go ahead.
I got to hit right away.
Go, good.
One, one was my grandmother. I'm elders. Actually, this beautiful quilt behind me.
Yes, Gina.
So, an influential individual in my life was my grandmother. I've always been very drawn to learn from our wise elders, and being able to have her support has been very fundamental. And I was kind of sharing about this piece behind me. This is a beautiful quilt that was made by the Mission Creek senior community in San Francisco. And I've been very fortunate to be having a storytelling group there every month for the last 10 plus years.
Wow.
And there's oh my gosh, they're the most amazing bunch of individuals, and the stories that are told are unbelievable. And there's so much that I've been able to learn, and I think collectively we can learn from our elders. So that has been a big influence. And another kind of key transition that happened was when I was just finishing college. I had been in a relationship with somebody that we met during college, and it went on for about 8 years, I think, a fairly long time. And when we parted ways, it was incredibly stressful for me, because kind of that was my identity growing up as an adult, was tied to this person. So when we parted ways, my identity was just gone because it was tied with this person. And what happened out of that, which was really amazing and scary at the time, but there were kind of, I would call them intuitive gifts started happening. Mm-hmm. And like I would answer people's questions, and they were like, I didn't say that out loud. And I said, well, wow. I don't know. Or I would call them by their name, and they wouldn't have told me their name, these types of things. And that was for me, coming from a very traditional Western science background, unnerving to say the least. And it was a great gift in the transition, because this happened in Colorado, and then I moved to the San Francisco Bay Area where I grew up, and was very blessed to meet this amazing teacher who kind of opened me up to the world of shamanism, and helped me realize that I wasn't going crazy, that actually there was just this high level of stress externally had created this opening internally for me to just access some of these bigger gifts. And that's when I started learning how to, things that traditionally would have been called PTSD, I realized was actually a gift that I had to literally shift my consciousness from inside my body to outside my body for a specific purpose and come back in. And when I started being able to hone and train those tools and gifts, I was able to then teach others how to do that. So I would say right off the bat, that was, two of the big transitions that have kind of helped me to evolve to where I am right now.
Wow, Gina, I can see now how the neurobiology then got connected to the spirituality. And also thanks for sharing about your grandma. I'm sure she's there with us now that we talked about her. And I
absolutely
yeah and my heart blooms when I hear you working with elders, because I think as a world we've kind of moved away from the wisdom of the elders, and they do feel neglected these days. I think that in older cultures they would be respected for their wisdom, but these days they seem to be left alone. So really it makes my heart bloom to hear that. Thank you.
And I thank you, Gina, for, again, I love hearing bits of your story and the courage it took to feel yourself, to feel this internal, external experience, and then to receive the support that you did, and receive the gift of the shamanic training and opening of that for you. So thank you again. I'm very proud of you. And appreciate your courage. My story always comes to a professional experience I had when I was working in the Office of Development at Harvard Business School. And at the B School, there was always one big reunion each year for returning classmates, for the alumni. And so I had a great time planning that. The setting was in the Dean's Garden on the B School campus. And a time for the alumni to come back and mix with their classmates, and you might imagine, revel in their successes in the world and all the accomplishments that we say are important in at least in American culture in the United States and the corporate life. And so it was the day of the event, and everything was going beautifully, and I was standing by a ginormous shrimp bowl. to my early 20-something self, it was quite a lavish event. And what I started noticing, the people who were gathering around the shrimp bowl, of course there was the regular joking and how are you doing, and then the stories just took a very tender turn, and I started hearing primarily men really open their hearts and talk about personal feelings like regrets about the children that they didn't know having grown up, and in many cases multiple marriages. And I took that as a very private experience, that I was being shown something about our shared humanity, and that the contrast of to the external eye, that these are men and people who've been in the cover of the Wall Street Journal, easily recognizable corporate names, and yet here's what I had the privilege of hearing. And that just struck a chord for me, having grown up in a corporate family and feeling into this yin and yang of the lived experience, that there was, of course, much joy and love, and also the sense of it wasn't enough. There was something else that people were yearning for, and the American dream wasn't enough. And I'm fortunate that I had that early experience early in my professional life, because it really reignited for me that I didn't want to be separate. I didn't want my professional life and then my spirituality or my personal wisdom to be isolated. I didn't want to have a public persona and then have more of a spiritual practice. So I made a recommitment to just being my whole self and being able to be open and be available for people to share challenging or personal conversations. I wanted to be that safe place in the workplace, their deepest longings, which for me are the ontological questions of who am I and why am I here? I feel like we're always open. We want to be open to that knowing. So that's my story that stays with me. And I serve now with those people in my heart. I can still instantly close my eyes and be in that garden. And I feel like I made a quiet commitment that I would be of service where I could in the corporate world on their behalf. So thank you.
The world really needs more of this. Thank you for doing that. Thank you so much. Really need more of that. So my next question is, you must have come across many limiting beliefs or mindsets that people have. What are the most common, limiting mindsets you find, and how do you take them beyond that? If there are any stories or anything for us to really practically see how that happens.
I'm happy to pick up on that thread. For me, it comes down to people believing that they've been told they're not good enough, that somehow maybe in childhood, they were told they couldn't sing or they couldn't dance or they couldn't do art. And that got convoluted somehow in each of our childhoods. And allowing people space to go back and listen to those limiting ideas, those limiting concepts, and taking the time and quiet to let that bubble up and maybe write that, to listen to that, to listen to the silent dialogue going on inside. That can start a journey of healing for the self, and recognizing we always have a chance to choose again. That once I have that insight about myself, I can then make a different choice. And it may take time. It may take a lot of relearning and letting go, and choosing to let go, and have some discomfort around that, and trying those things. Folks that I've journeyed with, and even with myself, I tried those things that if I have an idea that I can't cook, or I'm not good at something, then I encourage myself by doing it so that I'm an encouragement for others. So that's been my journey so far.
Lovely, lovely.
Thank you, Cecily. Yeah, a big part of my work has been helping people shift their mindsets. Another transformative experience I had was being very fortunate to work with a husband and wife team called the Lefkos, Morty and Shelley Lefko. And many years ago, they created a technique called the Lefko method. And I worked with them, and I was trained in that technique.
Can you say that
and
again,
it was a very
Gina? Can you say that technique?
Lefkoe, Lefko method.
Okay.
And was very fortunate to experience that technique and then train to offer that technique. And it's very simple and very powerful. And when I went out on my own and started having my own consulting company, just because of my nature with my neuroscience background and my deep desire to understand the motivating source for behavior, I tweaked that technique so much that they were very sweet, and they asked if I could call what I was doing something else, so it wouldn't confuse people. So they were the source of what I now offer called belief work. And it's a very simple 5-step process that I'm not sure if people might have heard about Byron Katie. She has a technique called the work.
Okay.
And this technique is a little bit like that. And then there's a few more extra steps that really help ingrain a new neural pathway. So even though traditionally one needs to, create a habit about 30 days of doing something new, this is a technique that kind of takes advantage of the fact that our mind does not know what's real and imagined, and kind of bypasses that timepiece. So within 20 minutes, you kind of have had your neural pathways be ingrained with this new mindset, again, like in 20 minutes instead of having to do it for a month. And it's very powerful. And the thing that I find so kind of amazing is, again, bringing it back to the corporate world, that many CEOs and top management would come to me because there's some problem with their company. And at least today, maybe this will change in the future, many companies are kind of top down, right? So the person at the top, whatever their biggest aspiration and their most limiting mindset, that's kind of how big or small the company can get. And so very wise leaders would know that it was their limiting mindsets that was preventing the company from reaching the next goal. So they would come to me, and I would offer that technique. And just like Cecily was saying, 99% of the time, it's limiting self-esteem beliefs, whether it's I'm not good enough, I'm not important, I'm not lovable, they all play a role. And the irony about limiting mindsets that I think is so amazing and fascinating is everyone does exactly the right thing at the right time, and a byproduct of that is still limiting mindsets. And what I mean by that is when, we're growing up and we're a kid, we have to make sense of our environment. And we're smart enough in an unconscious way to know that we're not going to bite the hand that feeds us. We're not going to think something negative about our caregivers, our parents, for example. And so we unconsciously have to make that negative thing be about us for our unconscious survival. And so it's kind of this amazing, weird thing that happens as human beings are essentially forming their personality, that we unconsciously create these limiting mindsets. And it doesn't have to be that way. There are some very unique ways of parenting that can support not creating, limiting mindsets when people are young, and in those formative years. We actually start creating our belief systems when we're in the womb, in utero.
Wow.
And
Wow.
oh yeah, it's totally amazing. And until we're about 7, that whole time frame, we're essentially starting to build our personality. And those limiting mindsets, well, any mindset is an aspect of this personality. I'll just share like a little idea that I love, this theory that I love sharing with clients is, I see us when we're born as this ball of light, just love, pure love. Mm-hmm. And that's how we all come into this world. And that ball of light never goes away. It's still in all of us. But to make sense of our world, again, like to make sense of our environment, when we're very young, we have these veils come over, and unconsciously we start thinking like, I'm not important or I'm not lovable, just because we're trying to make sense of our environment. And then we get the next layer that's something about how, we think we need to be in the world. Like, oh, if I'm smart, then that makes me important, right? And then we have that most outer layer of how other people see us. Oh, that person is a great business owner or an amazing CEO. And so part of belief work and there's so many great tools that help us shift our mindsets, is to let go of these veils. So then our point of reference, instead of being out here in this way of I see myself based on how others see me in the world, moves more into this place of light and love, where I see myself independent of my personality. And there's so much power there. And that ties into this topic we've been talking about, best self, is it's that way to be able to tune in and be living from this place of light and love all the time. It takes a little practice, and it's possible.
It is possible.
What struck me is, you were talking about CEOs and how their best selves and also their limiting beliefs, shape the organization, but it's almost like hard to think that the people at the top are thinking that they're not good enough. It just boggles the mind, but I'm sure that you all see it, right? Even at the top, you see it and you're like, this person is at the top. This should be the last person to say that.
Well, that's a big,
yeah.
And remember I was saying how the motivating factor drives me? I mean, that's what makes me good enough is something outside. So that's what drives somebody to grow the company. What makes me good enough is being a good CEO. So that keeps driving that. Where if what makes me good enough is nothing external, because I'm just always good enough by just existing, then one can grow the company from that internal energy being kind of pulled from them versus having to push and make something happen all the time. There's just a greater level of ease for leadership when you're coming from that place. So a lot of times it's that limiting belief that's actually driving that very intense, passionate building behavior that CEOs, again, I don't want to group people together, but
right. So sometimes that might give you success outward, but you feel empty inside. Is that what you're?
Yes.
Since you work so much with the top executives and also lower down, is there something that separates someone at the top from someone? Because so many times people at the top and people slightly below have similar qualifications, right? On paper they seem to have similar. What would you say differentiates them? Is that a fair question? I don't know, it just came into me.
And I want to allow space, Cecily, for you to go. For some reason, I'm just like, oh, Cecily wants to answer this, but I don't want to put words in her.
Oh, I don't know. It's been so interesting in my career to see the folks that we say are in the top. Usually those are the folks that I'm having the conversations about with, that they're not feeling secure at the top, or they start to feel that they're living out of a place of fear. You know, how do they maintain that position or that image?
Right.
Because they feel it, and people who are maybe in a management level, they all feel, we're energetic beings, so we feel each other's anxiety, we feel that threat, or we feel any diminishment to power, or that we might lose our position. So it keeps this uneasy aura on a team, and I feel like it's a limiting type of energy, and so teams can be limited by that dynamic in a traditional hierarchical organization. So I don't see it as very creative. I think when leaders are able to operate out of their own capacity for compassion for themselves, and their own capacity to live their humanity, and to be open to learning and to be vulnerable, then their team is going to want to help them. And everyone can share together in the creative energies, and everyone gets to receive the praise and the sense of accomplishment. So that leader that's able to be open and vulnerable, I believe, has a lot more opportunity for being supported and having the whole company visions met when there is an opportunity for everyone to share in an equal and egalitarian way. So that's really the feeling that I want to live from. That's the feeling that the places I've been able to work with, I've been able to have those conversations, or the teams I've been a part of, we've had those conversations. So I know it's possible. I know once people recognize, oh, there's nothing wrong in me having a safe space to talk about my ideas for this project or that project, when that's welcomed, it creates energy, and then more people are able to feel a little bit more relaxed and trusted and believed in. So that to me is very energizing for a team.
You're creating such a beautiful sacred space, you know, in the organization. It really sounds beautiful.
Well, it's just relationships. When I, to me, there's no difference between, I don't want to call it work. I really feel it as a ministry, that my way of being in a workspace is service. And how may I serve? And that everyone can have an impact, that they're the one to the many. So we all are generating some sort of energy in any relationships we have. And I just see that the place that we spend a lot of our time to earn income, or to take care of our families or friends by having a job, that can be a very enriching place and a very dynamic place, rather than something that's 9 to 5.
Beautiful.
And Cecily, I love what you were sharing about just being more open to a new way of leadership, and how that absolutely can transform the entire organization and not just the team. And one thing that I think is a gigantic opportunity right now for all the younger individuals who are, you know, getting ready to graduate college and who've graduated college, and also the individuals who maybe aren't working now because of all of the challenges with the global pandemic. I know if I look on the surface, it's pretty easy to say, oh my gosh, this is terrible. Unemployment is at whatever level in that tier. Hopefully we'll stop having organizations that are like this, but are, you know, individual spheres of equal influence. But for right now, no matter where somebody gets hired within an organization, if all of those people are being able to use tools to access their unconscious mind, tune into that place of love and light inside, and lead from that place, we can so quickly transform this globe. I mean, that's why I love working with companies. They're the most amazing vehicle to take an intangible idea, like an iPhone, make a prototype, make a real product, and distribute it around the world and totally change the planet. I mean, imagine if all these individuals are starting to do that with a new way of leadership. I mean, we can really change the globe fast.
Yes, the infrastructure is there.
It's the
Yes.
best time ever to be young, starting into the workforce. That's my take.
Yes. Well, we've talked about this, Gina, you and I, about this is a renaissance. This is a new renaissance, and embrace what's possible.
Thank you for sharing so deeply, Gina. Next I want to come to, what you call compassionate listening. And I think everyone would really like to know how to become better listeners, and how does that really help? I mean, in business, but also in personal lives, how can we become better listeners?
I'll start with that. For me, listening was just part of my growing up. I was quiet as a child, and loved to read. And I think just that way of being from my inside allowed me space to reflect. So for me, it's always been actually a need to feel and sense my inner voice and my inner ear, and really hearing into what and feeling into what I'm experiencing around me, be it people or nature, and feel that communication, that everything is speaking, if you will. And I just carried that with me. And when I was able to learn more from others, I learned that, listening is a powerful way it has to start with me. Listen to myself and listen to my inner wisdom and trust my inner wisdom. And I found that capacity for listening was something that then drew people to me, and I was drawn to people. So it's very organic. And I definitely, again, kind of going back to I'll say untrained child, but just living from instinct, I was drawn to people who seemed to be in distress, be it at school or in my neighborhood. And so that gave me a sense of kind of fearlessness in one regard, that I wasn't afraid of being around people who were feeling uncomfortable or upset. And so again, these were sort of organic childhood experiences that I kept being present to. And I saw that there was a way of joining with people around shared stories, being able to be allowing people quiet space to start to connect with themselves and maybe share something personal. So again, I'll use the workspace as my container for being present with people. I found myself in many circumstances, either in my even in casual settings in the workplace, where I became known as someone you could kind of be like a trusted advisor. It wasn't something overt. I think just this feeling tone that we can have toward others. But again, I would say that it starts with my own, now that I'm older and I can talk in more, a more sort of accomplished way, or a more enlightened way, if you will, that I know that it starts with my constant inner being. My listening only only grows, my sensitivity only grows from my own practice, if you will, that that if I can't be present with myself, then I by no means want to be, I can't be of service, that I have to have that inner integrity, that inner alignment before I would even begin to think that I could be trusted by someone else, to be a listening ear, to be a confidant, or to be someone who another person would come to with their life story. So I've been grateful for the opportunities. And again, it always comes back to my practice with being in a very humble place and being very, very grateful to be of service in another human being's life. I think that's just the highest privilege. And again, that always comes back to me being open to learning, me being open to transformation, and wanting to be connected with love, and being a presence of love and welcome and healing for others.
Cecily, you bring up such a beautiful point, that we have to start by listening to ourselves first. That is so fundamental. My son, I think they started talking about whole body listening at a very young age. Now in schools, you're taught how to listen with your whole body. But this point, no one tells you about this. Like, first you have to listen to yourself, what your heart is saying, what your mind is saying, and only then you can. Wow, thank you. Thank you for bringing us back to that fundamental place. Thank you.
As you were talking, Cecily, as my husband Steven says, I got the biggest burst of love for you. Oh my God, I love you. You're so amazing. Man, talk about lucking out for a co-founding partner. I love hearing your story because it's so almost the opposite of mine. I was so scared to talk when it was like, I don't know, 4th to 7th grade or something. I just was so scared to open my mouth. So I couldn't have any inner silence, because when others were talking, I just had this total fear dialogue going in my mind. And I remember in high school, I went to kind of a place where, I pretty much didn't know anyone and no one knew me. And I just decided I would be totally different. And from going from a place from being really scared to talk to wanting to speak, the only thing I figured out to do is just say anything as soon as it came to my mind, just blurt it out. So it was an adjustment, to say the least. And I found that talking was the way I ended up feeling safe over time. So I would speak even more and faster and louder the more uncomfortable I was. And it wasn't until after college, the woman I learned my shamanic work with invited me to participate in a meditation. I'd never done meditation in my life. Definitely, I loved nature, and maybe that's the only places I kind of got still with myself. And this training was called the I Love Me meditation, and it was a 2-year program, and we met for, I think it was 2 or 3 hours every Wednesday. And for the entire first year, I fell asleep for the whole meditation time, except for like the first 10 minutes and the last 10 minutes. I think I probably snored a lot too. So, for me, it was so, I think my personality was so scared to be quiet, because I learned later through different types of therapy and stuff that there'd been some sexual abuse that had happened when I was an infant that I didn't know about until I was older. And so in retrospect, it makes sense. Like, my personality was trying to protect me. And if I got quiet inside, I'd have to start noticing the stuff that had kind of been buried for my protection. And now with a lot of practice, I mean, just like Cecily said, like, I have learned to be a great listener, but it's because I, had to take myself through that, for me, very, tough journey to just be still inside, so that that stuff that was buried could come up and it could be addressed. And in a way, as I'm saying that, I see two kind of like what I'm sharing is a little microcosm, but on a macrocosm, if I look at what's going on in our country right now in North America, there's a lot of uncomfortable things that are being revealed. And it's hard and it's terrible, and it's a first step to healing. Like, I couldn't heal myself until I could see what was going on, address it in some way. And so again, I think we're kind of at this amazing, beautiful time for collective consciousness healing and bringing collective love. And then the other piece that's tied to sheltering in place, that's been a big part of my life during the pandemic, is that I have to be quiet with myself, because all of those, awesome opportunities to go, to the symphony or see a play or a movie, like those do not happen. And all of a sudden I'm left with a lot more time with my family or with myself. And fortunately, I've had this practice, so I'm embracing that time. And I think for other people where this might be new, instead of being so scared about it, like, there's so many resources, on the internet or through this conference, to find whatever that perfect doorway is for you to start being still and listening inside. And a lot of times there is no scary stuff that comes up. You just get to start being, quiet and listening to yourself. I happen to have, some stuff in my past that came up, but for many people, it's just getting that opportunity to just fall in love with themselves. That's what I would say.
Yes. Thank you, Gina. Thank you for the divine being you are, and your story is such a healing story for so many. And your love always shines through.
It's we are in a pandemic, and I wouldn't wish this on the world, but now that we are in here, it does feel like an opportunity. It does feel like an opportunity for a lot of shifts, and I hear that happening across the world. A lot of people are forced to have that shift in themselves, and I am excited to see what the world is going to bring when we are all, how this inner shift is going to manifest outside.
Thank you, Mansi. Yes.
Yeah. So I wanted to know I think y'all have already shared. I wanted to know who are like the inspirations in your life, the remarkable people you met or not met. You just, you met them through their books, or they lived before your times. Who are the people who inspire you?
Gosh.
I know you both are inspiring and are going to be inspiring a lot of people who hear this video.
Thank you. I mean, for me, the first person that comes to mind is my husband, Stephen. I took a long time to find the ideal partner for myself. I was in my mid-40s before Stephen and I found each other. And one of the biggest gifts I can say being with him is both of us acknowledging to come together as a true partnership, not just to be in relationship with each other, but really have a true partnership. So things that have been really scary for me, like investing in the stock market. I would go and I was like, oh, I love the financial stuff. I'll be in charge of that for our family. And then, 6 months go by, no action. 8 months, he's like, do I need to do this? What's going on? I was like, okay, I'm just really nervous and I need a little moral support. And it's amazing, like he also loved that stuff and was like sitting by me and showed me a few tricks. And then I got a little bit more practice and a little more interested. And like just today, I sold a few stocks and bought some, and it was really exciting. And I was like, this is because we're good compliments. Yeah. Trust me, like that whole financial world was like the scariest thing for most of my life. So it's I feel so blessed to find that amazing partner where we both really support each other. And, I do the same thing for him in a myriad of different ways. So he's coming to mind right now as like a great inspiration. And I'm just so blessed to have him in my life. As Cecily will say, a great example of the divine male.
Yes. Definitely.
It sounds like such a partnership. So I'm so thrilled to hear that there are so many such partnerships in the world. Beautiful.
Yes. Well, actually, I've had the opportunity to meet people that one could say are more well known in the world, and yet my friendships, the people that help support me and are in my life every day, Gina, Mancy, you, just our shared humanity. I see the divine through each person and in nature. That's what inspires me, and just I feel that each person, what draws me and pulls me is that we all have a reason to be here, and we all have gifts to share, and that to me is what always makes me feel like everyone's my brother, my sister, my family. And so there's no greater or lesser. There's some that may, because of technology, have be more well known, but we're all geniuses. We're all divine beings, and I love exploring that with everyone that I meet, and going deeper with my friends, and living with that sense of purpose again. That there's a reason that we're here, and I'll come back to those. For me, the great philosophical questions of the who am I, why am I here? That's what I feel I want to be on a journey with everyone, with myself, see and live my growing edge, and also be in partnership and friendship with others who are discovering that divine beauty and divine knowing for themselves, and feel that sense of they belong, that we all belong together, and we're all together in the world united.
That is inspirational in itself. Thank you, Cecily. I want to get a little bit into, you both work in helping people discover their unique potential. One of the questions I often get from people is that they might be having success in a particular field, but they feel more joy in something else. And sometimes people are feeling joyful, but it does not provide for them. What would be your advice to those people? And anything else you would like to share about, how you take people through their unique potential? But I get this question a lot. So,
Gina,
I love this question.
Yes.
Go ahead. No, Cecily, please start.
Oh, you go.
No, there's a whole part of our training that we call finding your genius gifts, and it's kind of a two-part theory. And one is we've got this best self, this inner consciousness that's love and light, and then we have this other aspect of ourself, our personality, that is all things, the limiting mindsets and the expansive mindsets. It's all of that. And so supporting people in finding their genius gifts, it's working with both. So there's a very easy and simple technique that we'll end up sharing with everyone during our 15-minute offering on how to use neuroscience really to get direct access to this unconscious mind, to this place of best self, and to very quickly do that. And so when somebody goes and is able to tune into that part of them and ask questions, they get some pretty quick answers as to what really fills them up from the inside out, that place of full passion. And then you've got the personality part where people, know what they like. They know what they don't like. They know their skill sets and what's not that easy. So we marry both of them with the things that light them up and that they're great at and they enjoy, as well as those things that are driving them from this place of best self and light and love and purpose. And when that happens, that marriage of both of them really, when you see people who are just doing what they love and it's just who they are, that's what happens when you're in that place. And I think a lot of times if you're looking at the financial piece, I don't know how to say this exactly, but it's kind of just like the money comes, like as Cecily is so great at sharing, money is just energy. So it's just about creating a place for one to be a conduit for that energy to flow. And then a byproduct of that is the financial piece that comes with it.
Thank
Well
you.
said. Thank you,
I love
Gina.
the synthesis. Yeah.
Yeah, it gets me excited every time we talk this way, because I've been, you know, we can all imagine workplaces, and they've been, you know, workplaces have been made into TV shows about people, you know, who don't like what their work, and we usually have such a negative story about our workplace. So I get charged about the possibilities of folks to either recognize that they really are a square peg in a round hole, or maybe that they really do love what they're doing and there's just more they want to express, or so there's all possibilities of transformation. And for me, the nut of it is just letting love lead, and releasing that fear, doubt, and worry. That really, when we are open and welcoming to ourselves first and foremost, that I love myself and I want to express myself in my own unique way, then that, it's like the universe just opens up. I hear so many stories of serendipity or grace when people say, you know, when I was true and honest with myself, when I was in alignment and integrity with who I am, that's when you feel flow, or we feel serendipity, or we feel attraction, we feel our energy shifts. And in time and time again, you know, there's books about it, there's TED Talks about it, and recognizing that doesn't have to be somebody else, it really can be me. When we take that time with ourselves and honor ourselves, then it's going to happen. There's no not happening. It just is, because we are each divine creations, and we give ourselves permission to listen and let ourselves live the truth of who we feel we are, and not by some external judgment or external circumstances or conditions. When we can really be known by ourselves, then amazing things happen.
I so resonate with what you're saying, Cecily. Like, you know, when you are in alignment with yourself and you have your integrity, these coincidences happen. So my next question to you is like, how do you both come into that alignment and integrity? Are there any spiritual practices that you all follow on an everyday basis? This is a spiritual audience, so we would love to know what you all do individually for yourselves.
Gina, would you like to start?
Well, how we actually began this interview, which I don't know if it was recorded or not, but that's
You know
something
what? In
Cecily and I
retrospect,
do.
I should have, because it was very beautiful.
We start all of our umami business meetings with a check-in and a meditation, which can vary in simply being silent the whole time, to being silent and then speaking if one's inspired, to actually having something more guided. And I would say the biggest tool that I use just in my day-to-day is it's actually the tool that we'll be sharing and teaching for that 15-minute. But in essence, it's just bringing to mind something that creates a sense of love and connection for me, and using my breath to create that emotion and that body sense all throughout my body and around me. And when I'm in that place, that's kind of where I'm connected to my best self. And from there, I can ask a question. Like, that's usually how I'll start my business work day, is I'll be in that place and I'll say, okay, what are the top 3 things I need to do today? And the irony about it is, it's so, the power of our intuition to connect to this collective universal oneness or multiverse oneness is so amazing and powerful. And it always blows my mind, because there might be something like I, had a list from the day before and I'm about to just do that list, but then my intuition, that best self is like, oh, actually do these other things. And it turns out later I find that person I wasn't supposed to call was like out of town. So I just saved myself, that 5 minutes. And so my practice is tuning into that best part of myself as much as possible. And then the other thing that I have to have, or I just kind of go a little bonkers, is being out in nature. I just need to be out in nature for some chunk of time throughout the week. There's a place called Mount Tamalpais near where I live, and she's just this beautiful mountain that I really get filled up by being around or looking at. So that's probably my 2 biggest things. Yeah.
That sounds beautiful. Thank you so much, Gina.
Well, I'll start by saying that I always love to share with people that that we are spiritual beings having a human existence. So starting from that place of the divine, and just owning that and recognizing that and saying that's okay, that you're not, no one's a mere mortal. This is not just a planet spinning in the cosmos. There's something else mysterious. So being open to learning for me is been a huge way of acknowledging that I'm part of something more. And so keeping a childlike way of moving through the world, and always learning through learning through courses or books from each other. Nature's an important resource for me, being able to refresh, acknowledging taking care of my body is important so that I can be of service. I do have a prayer practice. I always listen into conversations, or I join with people on the phone for supporting other people. And if I hear it sounds like somebody's feeling a little bit distressed, then I have a prayer list that I keep. So I just do it kind of anonymously or quietly. Some people ask me specifically, but I always live from oneness. I live from listening and embracing whatever I'm hearing, saying, that's my brother, that's my sister, this is, the animals around me. I'm one with them. And that's just a knowing that I need to always keep being mindful about, that I'm one. We're all one. And that this is an expression of love and devotion. And Mazi, you mentioned, I'll mention some of the like bhakti yoga or vipassana. I've benefited so much from just feeling the devotional nature of existence. And out of that just wells so much gratitude and so much sense of love and givingness, that the more that I'm able to give, the more I receive. So I feel I feel it's such a gift to be present at this time in humanity's journey. I feel it's a huge honor, and I feel a commitment, a very strong commitment to be of service at this time. And so I'm just ever so grateful that we've all been brought together to touch the whole world, and to express and welcome everyone as part of our family. And where people are feeling like they're not worthy, or they're feeling less than, that we can just embrace them and journey with them, so they feel their wholeness. And they feel that that they're part of this weaving of our shared humanity and of our globe.
These are
That was
such
so
beautiful
beautiful,
ways.
Cecily.
Yeah, such beautiful ways to connect to the spirit. And Gina, what you said, we started this session, by connecting with each other in meditation, and I could feel this vibrational field that existed. You both already work together and you already have that, but I felt included in there, and
Mm.
I could see the love and gratitude just flow. So everything you're telling was there in that meditation, and I could feel it. So I'm grateful for that. I come to our last question. This whole conversation has been flowing with your wisdom. Is there any last thing you would like to tell our viewers? What is this one piece of wisdom you always hold close and hold it to be true?
I'll have to look. I have a little piece of fragment here that I'd like to read.
Sure, of course.
There's a favorite author of mine.
Okay. Yes, please go ahead.
Let me see if I can find it here.
Mhm.
Okay, so this is an author that I've read for a number of years, and I really appreciate this. This little reading is almost, for me, it's almost like a poem.
Mhm.
So he says, listen to your life. See it for the fathomless mystery it is, in the boredom and pain of it, no less than in the excitement and gladness. Touch, taste, smell your way to the holy and hidden heart of it, because in the last analysis, all moments are key moments, and life itself is grace. And that's by Frederick Buechner in his book, Now and Then, A Memoir of Vocation. So thank you for asking.
I could feel goosebumps, while you were just saying that. Especially the word that, like this, the line that every moment is key. Like all, like, it felt like every moment, every moment. We tend to think important, not important, every moment. It's divine.
Yes, the now. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you, Cecily.
Mm. Cecily, thank you so much for sharing that. I know I felt that in my body.
Yeah.
That was beautiful. Yeah, that really works, Cecily, because just yesterday I was going through poetry that I've written over the years, and I was just thinking like, wow, I should probably do something with it versus it just being stored on my computer and no one reading it. And you just reminded me of that commitment I gave to myself yesterday. So that poem really works. That's good. I mean, mine would just be to find whatever that tool is to help you connect to your best self as often and easily as possible. And I mean, it can just be taking a moment to watch the sunset or the sunrise. Or when I was thinking about this, I had an image of a parent and a child holding hands, and just when you're holding your little one's hand, just really taking a moment to just feel the hand and notice that connection and give gratitude. It's just those few little present conscious moments that immediately connect us to our best self. And the more we choose to do that, it's this immediate, beautiful doorway into love and gratitude and connecting with everything into that oneness.
I'm just taking in that moment. I'm feeling, how I feel when I connect to my own child and how it connects to the highest in me. Thank you, both of you, Gina and Cecily, for sharing your best selves and leading us to ours. Just a deep, deep namaste to both of you. Thank you. So grateful.
Oh, namaste to you. Nancy, you're so good at this. I'm like so grateful that we got to meet you, and just, I'm so excited for this conference. Oh my gosh, this is gonna be amazing for the collective consciousness shift on this globe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for doing such a beautiful job opening us up.
It was, you both are so natural. It was just, it didn't feel like effort. It just felt so natural with both of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.